Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq 100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Friday afternoon is Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, for an update on Nasdaq 100 levels and how we're seeing some similarities to the market that we saw prior to the 2016 election. And Brian, 2020 has certainly been an unprecedented year for a lot of things. So it's almost soothing to hear that we're hearing, it's similar to prior years as well.
Yeah, there are certain things that are similar to 2016, and we know around the election then that would have been a good buying point. Every era is different, and there's certainly a lot of things that are different. 2020 has been unlike any other year we've seen before. But as far as the NDX goes, in 2016, going into the election, ending that Friday before the election, the following Tuesday, the NDX was down 9 straight days in a row, between about 5.5% to 6%. And so we've seen similar weakness over the last 2 weeks here, 2+ weeks. We're down about 10% off the early October highs. And at that time, also in 2016, interest rates were on the rise, and that's one of the things that stands out to me this week is that the long yields, the 10-year, the 30-year, have been holding their recent moves up, and so typically when we have a risk-off scenario that we've seen the last couple of weeks, particularly this week, you see those flows move into safe havens like Treasury bonds, forcing yields down. So we aren't seeing that yet. So there's some so on that front, there's some similarities, and certainly we could see some further downside weakness from here. We have had a phenomenal move off the lows since March, which we've spoken about a lot. And so if we had a greater pullback, certainly wouldn't surprise anyone, given the sharp gains. So we just have to wait and see, and there's certainly some price levels we can look at.
All right, well, let's take a look at them, Brian. Quick check at the charts here.
Okay, so as you can see on the NASDAQ, on the daily time period here, we've given back the 50-day moving average. We did that on Wednesday of this week. If I zoom in here, you can see we consolidated a little bit along there. Previously, this was support, resistance, support, again, briefly support. So the NDX is telling us it's sensitive to that level. We broke down below it 2 days ago, and we're seeing further downside today. Interestingly, on the momentum indicator, the daily RSI, we are now making new lows. Back in September, we pointed out then that we had broken this support level in the RSI around 52. So since then, we've seen a lot of volatility, a lot of choppy corrective price action. We almost got back to the new highs in price earlier in the midpoint of this month, but we're now rolling back over, and the RSI is making new lows. So that alone would argue that the NDX may have some further move to the downside as well. When I look at the weekly period time frame, this is really how we can identify what's a key price level coming up. And if I zoom in here, we had essentially what could be a double top pattern right here. We cannot have confirmed that pattern until we break the midpoint low, which back in September was around a 10,677. This is your key support level right here. This is where NDX needs to hold. If it does not hold that, we have a 1,500 point range in here. So technicians would use that as a level to say that's our potential downside move if we have a breakdown below 10,677. So very early to making a call like that. Certainly I'm not making that call. I think at the very least what we're looking at here is some corrective sideways price action following the steep uptrend. But 10,677 in the NDX is definitely the key level to key in on.
All right, Brian, I also want to take a look at Bitcoin because we cover that every now and then. And of course, it's had an incredible run thanks to some major mass adoption announcements. PayPal being the most recent, which is encouraging certainly for the space. And while we saw the sell-off in the beginning of the week, we saw some profit taking in Bitcoin as well. Perhaps some investors were moving to cash, but as you can see, it's been behaving really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. The move over the last month or so has just been phenomenal, up around at least 30%.
Yeah.
And as you can see in the daily RSI, we're now we've hit the 80 level this month. And so that's reflecting, the extreme bullish price action. It also is an indication that it could be approaching some overbought technical conditions, buyer exhaustion, so to speak, as we say. And as a result, we've seen that sideways consolidation. What's interesting, we highlighted last week some key price levels above to look at, given the recent breakout, and this week's high, which is 13,857, almost identical to the high we made back in 2019, which is 13,852. So, 5-point difference given this type of security and its dramatic moves. This is an expected level of resistance. As we noted, the daily RSI was up around that 80 level. When you have an overbought momentum condition and you hit an expected resistance level, which is a prior high from over a year ago, those are usually conditions where we can expect some consolidation to take place. So we're on watch to see if this level maybe causes Bitcoin to consolidate, and how it consolidates will be key. Does it trade sideways along this resistance level, which would be constructive, or do we see a deeper pullback in price? And so that remains to be seen. If Bitcoin blows through this next week and continues higher, well, that would just be reflective of the type of security this has been. As we've noticed in the past, it can have phenomenal moves to the upside. So Bitcoin's on the radar to see if we could see that type of price action again. Overall, I'm definitely constructive on Bitcoin, but we are hitting that resistance level from 2019, and combined with overbought momentum readings could indicate that we could be in for some profit taking here and some sideways consolidation.
All right, Brian, thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.